Hello everyone, this is CA Rekha. I'm an engineer turned chartered accountant. So today the topic I'm going to discuss is about controls, and this is from the chapter Information System and its Components. So I'll be discussing what are controls, what is the requirement for a control, and what are the different types of control. I'll be elaborating one of the controls in detail. Now, coming to what are controls. Controls are basically required to ensure that the business objectives are achieved by the particular entity. And any kind of undesired risk that is being faced by the entity or by the organization, it is prevented, detected and corrected. So basically as you go by the objective of control, there are three main objectives of control, that is prevention, detection and correction. Prevention, detection and correction of risk. So now you might ask me, what is a risk? A risk is, or risk happens when, or risk is an event that happens when a threat exploits a vulnerability. What is a threat? What is a vulnerability? When a threat is exploiting a vulnerability, it gives rise to a risk. So I'll give you a very real-time example of what is a risk. Now, you are living in a locality which is prone to robbery or theft. Your apartment is in a particular location which is prone to any kind of robbery or threat. So, this kind of being prone to robbery or theft, this constitutes your threat. This is your threat. Now, your apartment has a security. Your apartment it is supposed to have a security guard or a CCTV surveillance, but your apartment does not have a particular security guard or a full-time CCTV camera or a surveillance system. So what happens? There is some kind of a vulnerability there. So any person who is coming from outside can easily enter the facility or enter your apartment, and there is a chance for robbery or theft to happen. So this is a vulnerability. Absence of any CCTV camera or absence of any particular security guard is a vulnerability. So any kind of threat, that is the possibility or the area being prone to robbery or theft, acting on this particular vulnerability or exploiting this vulnerability of not having a security guard or not having a CCTV camera, this will give rise to one event called as risk, that is your apartment or your house getting robbed. So your house getting robbed and all your personal belongings and money or jewelry, whatever it is getting stolen. That is a risk. So when a risk happens, when a particular threat exploits a vulnerability. So what is a precaution? What is a one solution for against the risk is implementing controls. So once these controls are implemented, this helps to either prevent these risks or detect those risks and also correct so that these risks do not come in the future. So depending on the objective, we have three types of controls. So basically controls are divided into three. One, depending on the objective. Second, depending on the IE's resources which is used. And thirdly, depending on the function, audit function. So depending on the objective, there are three types of controls. One is preventive, second is detective, and the third is corrective. Depending on the nature of the IS resources used, again we have three types of controls: logical, physical and environmental controls. And depending on the audit function, we have two types of controls. One is managerial and application controls. So now I am going to explain a little elaborately about the controls based on its objective. So what are the controls that is based on the objective? So now before going to controls, how it is achieved is there should be a proper design of a proper control framework. Control framework, the organization, whichever organization is planning to implement the controls, there should be a proper well-designed control framework. Not only a control framework is required, but also some control activities. These control activities should be consistently there. It should be supervised and should be reviewed at regular intervals. So all this constitutes your control system. What is controls and how controls are going to be implemented. Now we'll come to the next topic, that is the controls based on their objective. I said there are three types. One is your preventive, one is detective, and the next is corrective. Now coming to the first category of controls, what is preventive? What are preventive controls? So as the name suggests, preventive controls are those controls which prevent any kind of error or malicious activity or any kind of omissions from happening. So if these types of controls are used as a precautionary measure, these kinds of controls are used as a precautionary measure. This is the main objective is safeguarding. So before anything could happen, this acts as a safeguard. The basic example for these kind, in the real time when you are telling about preventive controls, what are the things that first comes to your mind? Say for example, you are working in a firm, you are going for an out audit, you are going to a client place. So the first basic thing, what happens? Will you be just like that? You will be entered into the facility? No. There will be some kind of controls. These are called as your access controls. It is also a form of preventive controls. You will not be directly entered into the facility. There will be one security guard who will be asking you whether for what purpose you are coming. They will be giving you a guest ID card. So only those persons or those employees that is wearing the ID card of the company or those persons having the guest ID card will be allowed to enter the facility. Again, there will be one more kind of a check. Once you enter the facility or if you are about to enter the facility, there could be some kind of a verification or examination whether you are carrying any kind of a harmful object or any kind of a data storage medium. That kind of check could also happen. This happens in most of the corporate companies. Morning there will be one kind of check whether they'll inspect the employees whether they are carrying any kind of a storage medium. Then again there will be the next level is what they'll be either having a biometric system or they will be having cards. So you have to swipe the cards or use a biometric system to gain entry to that particular facility. So even once you enter the facility, you gain access by swiping your card. Sometimes there might be another security guard standing to check. It is not because you don't have an ID card or you haven't swiped or there is no biometric. Even when you swipe the card and enter, there could be someone who is tailgating you. Tailgating means following you without swiping or without a card. So for capturing that or to avoid such kind of a tailgating behavior, another security guard will also be there. So these are all kinds of preventive controls. Sometimes the system, for example, in most of the companies they will have server rooms. It will be in a particular remote location or in an isolated locality, and access will be given only to those persons who has the authorization to do. So these kind of controls, and even if they enter, they have to swipe their cards or give adequate passwords to enter system. Your system password is another kind of a preventive mechanism. Only the authorized users can enter the system or can access your system. So what is the main purpose of such preventive controls is to prevent such actions from happening, because data is the most important factor for any kind of a corporate entity. Any kind of information system, data has to be protected. There should not be any data leakage. There should not be any kind of data manipulation other than by the authorized users. So this is one kind of a access control. Now, the second kind, this also includes your data edit checks. You have this not null constraints. Only valid numbers or valid alphabets can be entered into the field. That particular field should not be left null. This is again a kind of a preventive control. Second is you have detective controls. Once the preventive controls are weak or it is not working properly, some errors happen, some malicious activity happens. In order to detect that, we have these kind of controls. These are called as detective controls. These are used to help or detect any kind of malicious activity from happening. Example is log. You see the logs to find out what is the error that has happened. Or you have flagging mechanism in bank accounts. Those accounts, in order to whichever has some suspicious activity, they would have red flagged those accounts. So this is to detect any kind of malicious activity that has happened. Or even your physical inventory count. You do an inventory count. Why? To check whether the actual inventory count is same as that mentioned in the book. Your reconciliations, or even what happens, your duplicate calculation checking. All these constitutes your detective control. You are detecting those errors or malicious activity that has happened once the preventive controls are weak or absent. Sometimes it is both used together, your detective and preventive controls. For example, I have some guests at home. I have one CCTV camera, but I want to make sure that nobody enters the room where my personal belongings are kept. So I'll be monitoring the visuals captured by the CCTV camera. I can detect who is doing what. At the same time, I have kept a kind of sensor at the door. so that anybody who touches or tries to gain entry I'll be notified with such persons, and immediately there will be some kind of sensor that gives me an alarm in the form of a text message to my mobile. So it is a kind of prevention tool. So this is all. This we are using a detective control along with a preventive control. Now corrective controls. Corrective controls are what? In order to, once the error has happened or malicious activity has happened, I want to reduce the impact of that activity, or I want to identify the cause of that activity. I want to provide remedy to that particular activity and make sure the system is modified such that it doesn't happen again. I want to reduce the impact of error, correct the error. Such kind of controls are called as corrective controls. Then best example of corrective controls are what? Suppose an employee is leaving the organization. Normally, I have to deactivate the ID card. Suppose the ID cards are not deactivated. I come to know that there are some kind of transactions or some kind of activity that is being carried out by the employee who has resigned. So now my duty is to deactivate the card, or suppose a person is, unauthorized person is accessing some data. Now the corrective control would be to assign appropriate rules to the person. I want to make sure this person is getting only a read access. He is not able to do any kind of manipulation in the data, or any kind of data manipulation done by this user should be notified. So all these things are corrective controls. This is basically used for correcting any kind of errors that has already been detected by the detective controls. So I hope the session was useful. Thank you so much.